Well, I was going to say, you were saying in our group chat that the tactical setup for the defence was totally changed without the voice and the presence and the passing ability out from the back of Martinez. And probably highlights another weakness of this Villa team is that Robin Olsen is just not a good enough number two, is he? You've been saying that since he's joined the club. Are you concerned
Yeah.
by that as the backup option as goalkeeper? And do you see him ever getting in sync with what this defence needs and what they've built up with Martinez commanding them?
It feels horrible kind of criticizing a Villa player, and actually there was one moment in particular in this game that he did
Yeah.
incredibly well, where he made this excellent save from Cole Palmer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the sort of thing that we used to see Martinez do. So there is definitely credit in the bank for him for that. However, the biggest difference actually wasn't even his performance; it was the way that the defense reacts to him. So, for example, that Palmer chance is a perfect point of this. The ball is bouncing back towards goal. Diego Carlos has a simple job of passing the ball back to Olsen, but there looks like there's a reluctance from the defence to do that. Now, if
Yeah.
Martinez is in goal, I am fully confident that Carlos rolls that ball back to the keeper. And instead, he tries to get his boot round it and try this weird flick. And it seems like there's a bit of a lack of trust. There was a couple of times, Pau Torres in the second half, who's normally so good at distributing the ball, forced the ball out of play because it looked like he didn't want to pass the ball back to Olsen. And actually, when you look at the possession stats, Chelsea dominated the ball. And
Yeah.
typically, what would happen there is if that was happening to Villa, they would get the ball back to Martinez and he would spend some time on the ball. I saw the other day, no player in the Premier League has spent more time with the ball at their feet this season than Emi Martinez. Because he
Wow.
loves doing that. He
Yeah.
draws the press out and then he finds the option and he will stand with the ball there for 20 seconds if he needs to. But it looked like they didn't trust Olsen to do that. And what that meant was they couldn't play their normal possession holding game and gave Chelsea far more of the ball than they wanted to in the second half. And we saw that Chelsea could hurt us in the cup game earlier in the season. And that same thing came to fruition here. You've got one goal from long range, which is outstanding, but I do wonder if Martinez gets a bit closer to it. And you've got a constant worry of keeping the ball at your feet. And without Tielemans and Martinez, arguably two of our most important players to keep possession, they really gave the game up to Chelsea, and it was a shame.
Have we had any news on the injury yet for Martinez? Do we know what the outlook is for him?
Not firmly, no. Emery said that both him and Tielemans would have to be assessed still. Now, we're playing on Thursday, obviously. Martinez is suspended after his yellow card in the penalty shootout. So Olsen will be back in goal for that one. He will need to get up to speed quickly because it is the most important part of our season now. We are so close to clinching fourth place. We are so close to clinching a trophy. And no one, there's no goalkeeper we could have that would live up to Emi Martinez as a number two. It's impossible. We've got the best goalkeeper in the world. You then can't follow that up with a good substitute. It's not possible. But Olsen still can play a massive part in our success this season. And I would be happy for him to see him do that. We all want to get behind him.
It's funny how the tone changed when we started talking about the run-in and looking ahead to whether Spurs will look at it more favourably than Villa. And then as soon as we mentioned the injuries, the further injuries to the many that we've had this season, suddenly changes the outlook because there's so many buts. And I think that's the question for you, Dave. If you look at Villa's run-in, and we were talking about how much of a more positive outlook it is for Villa, are you looking at it in a different way with the Martinez and Tielemans injuries? Obviously, depending how serious they are, do you think that changes the top four race much?
I think we obviously spoken earlier in the season when obviously Pau Torres picked up that injury and had that little spell. I think Martinez is probably, along with him, and there's probably a couple of the players in that team that are absolutely essential to the way that Villa operate. And I just wonder actually whether maybe obviously Emery's instructions are different for when Olsen's in goal, and that creates. But I don't know if it creates a little bit of a hesitation in their play.
Yeah,
and it looks that way at times.
Well, we saw that when De Gea was in goals at the start of Ten Hag's reign, didn't we? He just couldn't adapt as much,
No. So,
and that's why Raya's coming at Arsenal as well. Like that is a thing. If a goalkeeper isn't as competent with his feet, then what are their defenders supposed to do when they're trying to pass? That extra man is the one that's unmarked most of the time. It's the goalkeeper. So if he's good enough with his feet, it does everything for you.
I think that result today in the Spurs game will have given Villa a lot of confidence. I think
huge boost.
I think that will have. I think it's a little bit too much for Spurs. If I'm being honest, really, I think there's a lot of ground to make up there. Villa have got the points on the board. I think they're in a really strong position. So I'll be really surprised to see them sort of let it slip now.
I think 4 points confirms it. 3 points might be enough. And I'm quite confident in that.
It's just whether they can get it right on the training ground to get Olsen up to speed for however long he's in goals for. But hopefully Martinez is back as soon as he can be, really. The next league game would be ideal.
And to be honest, there were a few players that were off it as well. It wasn't just about Olsen, definitely not. Like I say, Torres' distribution got a lot weaker in the second half. Carlos, it was the worst I've seen him play for a long time when he came on, because he's been really good lately. Luis looked like he really struggled to get to the pace of the game. Caicedo had his number for most of the game.
Backing off, wasn't there? Like, there was no high line, there was no pressing. It was just literally letting Chelsea come at them, which is surprising, really.
In the first half, Bailey was excellent, and other than that, I think most of them looked like they weren't really up to it yet. And Rodgers as well, actually. We talked about Rodgers, didn't we, last week, and the impact he was starting to have, and he showed it again.